just either slightly different from what they are, or we talk, we see things that are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. If you've seen something strange, if you've had an encounter with the paranormal, a cryptid, UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, anything strange, and you'd like to share your story, you can email us, strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com. Speaking of encounters, we've got a whole grab bag of encounters tonight. Stickman, albatwitch, giant fox, a haunted insane asylum, a black-eyed man, black dogs, spooklights, and a one-eyed demon man. Before we get into our stories, though, I do want to thank Bart from UFO Weekly News. You can find them at ufoweeklynews.com. Bart sent me this really cool collection of cryptid figures from Etsy. I think he had sent them to Soraya first and heard me on Where Did the Road Go, saying that I like cryptids too, and he sent a set to me as well. So thanks so much, Bart. And check out UFO Weekly News at ufoweeklynews.com. So we're going to hear from three folks tonight. But let's start off with Chris, who's going to tell us about the stickman he saw, and then get into a very interesting account of a one-eyed man who was very sinister. Guess what he was wearing? Okay, we're talking with Chris, who has a couple of experiences he's going to share with us. Stickman and possible red-eyed demon or something like it. But I guess we'll start with the Stickman. If you want to just walk us into that.
For sure, yeah. No, thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate you letting me tell these stories. I haven't told many people, and really like to maybe get an answer if anybody out there has encountered anything similar.
That's one of the most interesting things of late. Whenever somebody brings something up, it's almost guaranteed somebody will say, yeah, I saw that too, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll get into this with the demon story, but I was telling my brother that we were setting up this conversation, and I thought he might listen to your show, and I didn't want him to be surprised. So I told him a little bit about the demon story, which I'll get to in a second, and he had a similar experience in a similar place that I'll bring up. But I'm just constantly surprised by this stuff as well. The Stickman was probably like 10 or 11, was living in Central Florida at the time. I was walking to my friend's house, kind of a loose-knit neighborhood. It wasn't a very long walk, like maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. And there was a dirt road portion. And the cool thing, like with the dirt road, is it really, like the heat coming off the road just had this cool shimmering effect, and it kind of changed on the dirt road. Yeah, so anyway, I'm walking down this dirt road, and my attention's drawn to somebody walking on the other side of the road coming towards me. And I don't quite know how to describe it, except it was a geometric stick man, almost like something that you see nowadays out of Minecraft, completely like rainbow colored, just like real bright reds and greens and blues, walking, just minding its own business, coming towards me on the other side of the road. And I distinctly remember this like it was yesterday. I saw a car coming down the road, and the stick thing was kind of, in the middle of the roadish. So I look up at the car, and my first thought is like, oh no, the car's going to run into this thing. The moment my head turns back, it's gone. But, the entire short time I was contemplating it and interacting, I guess, passively with it, I never felt any kind of vibe, whether good or bad. If anything, it was an awareness, but a passive indifference.
Did it move like a Minecraft man? Did it bend at the knees, or?
It had a pretty normal gait, And I confess I've never played Minecraft. I've seen the screenshots. I don't know exactly how they move. But did you ever watch like this cartoon in like the late 70s, early 80s called Unico?
No.
It was a kid's cartoon about this unicorn. And there was one creepy episode that involved like this Pied Piper type of character that would play this melody on its flute and turn people into like stickmen. And it moved just like that, all kind of creepy and slow and like kind of how a human would move if it suddenly found itself like two-dimensional and flat.
Wow.
And yeah, it looked just like that, except it was all multicolored, you know, like real bright rainbow type colors.
That's just bizarre. Like, what is that about? So you couldn't see any like facial features or anything like that? It was just kind of colored, for lack of a better description?
Yeah, just colored, for lack of a better description. It was no facial features, no hands, no feet, purely just like, you know, low resolution pixelated blocks before I even kind of knew what that was as a thing. Because this probably happened in the late 80s, maybe like right around, you know, Mario was popular before the Super Nintendo, but, you know, still. But it was even more blocky than like an early Nintendo game, if that's making any sense at all.
Yeah, well, you were given a sight of some sort of something before the great programmers skinned it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that definitely sounds like that. And something else that happened many years later, but in the mid-2000s, I was working delivering pizzas. It was way out in the country, man. So like you were always on your toes about finding these dirt roads or like these little houses or trailers off of a dirt road that was off of a dirt road. And I got out of my car with the pizzas and looked over my shoulder, and there was like this little 2-foot tall, like dwarf, deformed gnome looking thing on the front porch. I kind of just like rubbed my eyes or like shook my head and looked again, and it was gone. And listening to myself talk out loud, I have to say that I've never suspected or been diagnosed with any kind of mental illness or, you know, any issues like that. So,
well, the Stickman I've never heard before, although I did have someone email me and say, has anyone ever reported Stickman? And I don't know, you know? So whoever that was who emailed me, here you go, yes. But the dwarf or the little gnome kind of guy, I've actually had several reports of people seeing something like that. And they describe it the same. They'll see it and then they'll look again and it's gone.
Okay. Yeah, no, I remember it being a very intense experience, and I told a couple coworkers about it, and they laughed at me and made fun of me for the rest of the shift, and we took it all in good humor. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe I saw it, and don't know if I was meant to, but that was an experience for sure. The demon story was like the big one and kind of the longer one, but if you want, I've got a Spooklight story from around the same geographical area in South Carolina if you're interested.
Sure.
So there's a Spooklight called Bingham's Light near Dillon, South Carolina, and I lived about 40 minutes away from it at the time. And I think it was maybe on the Shadowlands in the early 2000s that we found directions to it. So we're like, you know, like me and my friends and their friends, there was probably like 10 of us, decide to take like 3 cars and drive out there. And one of my buddies had just gotten one of those new at the time Sony handheld digital camcorders that like records to tape but had like the first generation like infrared night vision on it.
Yeah, I remember those.
All right, cool. So yeah, that's going to be kind of important in a second. But we park where the directions say to park, and we probably walked for 2 hours on this dirt farm road, not even thinking like how much trouble we could get into or possibly hurt, and like nobody would know, you know, what was going on. But we get to this spot like over this little hill where the Spooklight's supposed to be seen, and man, this is embarrassing, but like a bunch of my friends were just like going all belligerent, like yelling at the stars, talking, just saying inappropriate things to the Spooklight if it's out there. And meanwhile, I'm kind of a big dork, so I've got the camera on, the area with the infrared light on. And after 10, 15, 20 minutes of that, everybody gets bored and we decide to hike it back because it's getting super late at this point, probably like 2 or 3 a.m. We get home, go to sleep, we pass out. It's a long, long day. I plug in the video camera the next day and I'm watching the footage. And this entire time I'm looking through the viewfinder of the video camera when I was recording it, I was looking through the viewfinder and I didn't see anything, with my naked eye or with the viewfinder. But when I plugged it in, there was a big, hot infrared light right past my friends where we were looking at the spot where the light was supposed to appear.
So you didn't see it when you
didn't
were there?
See it with the naked eye, but it showed up on the camera.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
And how big was that?
It was not insubstantial. It was like maybe... when you're out in the country and pitch black, car headlights at 50 feet are going to be super bright. Probably something about like that.
Wow. So you did get to see him, just not while you were there.
I guess so. Yeah. It was a real noggin scratcher. I don't really know what to make of that one.
The lights are some of the most interesting things to me regarding all of this because they show up with all aspects of the phenomenon, but I have no clue what to say about it. We could do light shows every week, and it amounts to describe what you saw, and then I don't have, there's not much else to say other than, we saw lights and they were there, But I'm endlessly fascinated by it.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I definitely... I love hearing your stories about the lights, especially stuff at like Site 7. I feel like I've gotten the short version preview, like the movie trailer, and some other folks out there with some of their experiences and analysis are definitely getting the longer version of the same movie. And I'd like to see more of it. From an analytical point of view, it's definitely fascinating.
Yeah, there's something about them. I mean, there's certainly if you saw a big creature or something, it'd be way more intimidating. But there's definitely, spooklights are like the appropriate name for them. There's definitely something spooky about them because I know for me, I'm just looking at them and I'm just running through this catalog. Like, what? I'm speaking of the Site 7 lights specifically. Like, what is that? What could it be? Like, what are the 500 things that it could be? And you're just eliminating one after another after another. And, eventually you just get to, I don't know what it is. I have no clue what that is. And I think that JR, that was with me that night, he comes down way harder on the flesh and blood side of the Bigfoot thing. So he was in no way ready, I don't think, to experience those lights. He was ready to debunk any way possible. And he just, after a while, he just like, what are those? I don't know what those are. He was faced with this complete smack upside the head of just weirdness.
Yeah, no. And I think that's like how like the other, quote unquote, gets us. It seems to be something so simple that it's accessible almost immediately and, able to draw the curiosity. But the longer you analyze it, the more it just kind of messes with you. Like it doesn't fit into any larger picture that we can understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about the demon story. I need to get that off my chest.
All right.
So this happened when I was about 17 or 18. I was at my house, and it was probably sometime in the mid-afternoon, and I decided I was going to take a nap because I was tired. So I'm laying down in my bed, and I've got this weird feeling going over my body. I can't really describe it, and I've since come to understand it as the feeling that precedes an out-of-body experience or something other of like a parasomnia, sleep paralysis, which has happened to me pretty recently with the same exact feeling. I've heard some people describe it as like a buzzing. Mm-hmm. For me, it's more of a incomparable stillness of both mind with like a very heavy feeling in the body that almost is like pulling you towards sleep versus as like drifting off towards sleep, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So immediately I'm taking this nap. I'm just like, bam. I'm back standing up, and everything just feels weird. It's like I'm walking through water that's over my head with the current pushing slightly against me. Like every step, every movement is requiring extreme concentration and effort. And I kind of figured something's up. And I walk out of my bedroom, which was on the second floor with like a little balcony and stairways and a landing going down to the first floor of the house. And on the landing is a disheveled, dirty, homeless-looking dude in like his mid-40s, early 50s, and one of his eyes is missing. And it's just this big, red, shining, gaping hole. It's like the only thing you can notice. And because maybe I'm stupid, I was like, what are you doing here? What is this? Get out of my house. And I don't remember verbatim what he said. I wish I did. But it was something along the lines of, we want your soul. And maybe that was influenced by like a very heavy Catholic upbringing. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe it was just a manifestation of other kinds of fears. But I was already feeling very much on alert and just like, I don't know if the hair can stand up on the back of your neck in an out-of-body experience, but if it can, it definitely was. And at that point, I remembered reading in some, book somewhere, it's like, well, you can get out of an out-of-body experience by trying to wiggle your fingers. And I devoted all of my concentration to that. And the next thing I know, I'm in my bed. It's probably about 40 minutes later. And I'm a little concerned. I chalk it up to maybe a lucid dream or something like that. But it's kind of hard to tell this story. But so I want to get out of the house at that point. So I call up my buddy Mike. Mike, if you're listening, please get in touch with me and let me know, like verify this for me because, I need some validation. But we decided to meet at the local bookstore in town that had like a coffee shop in like small town South Carolina. It was like the only place to hang out really. So I get there a little bit later and see his car in the parking lot. So I walk in. He's talking to somebody kind of near the cafe, a little bit away from the entrance. And I walk up and kind of insert myself into the conversation. And it's the same dude. Missing eye. Big red gaping hole, which is just so creepy. Same clothes. And, they're not talking about the weather. They're not like, they're having some kind of discussion on like ethics and morality. And it was just a conglomeration of weirdness that I couldn't quite take. So I turned on my heel and excused myself and went outside to take a few deep breaths, and Mike met me out there eventually. I just don't know what to make of that because I'd never seen that person before or since.
Wow.
The soul overtones of the out-of-body experience combined with like the ethical, moral overtones of their conversation is even more stark because it seemed like the one-eyed guy was making a point of like, do what you want to do, only, I can't really explain it except it sounded to me like he was saying, hurting other people isn't going to make any difference. Just do what you want to do. Like morals and ethics are pointless, which, you could have a philosophical debate on that and make some good points on either side, but it just didn't seem very, very good, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Do you remember what he was wearing?
Tim, I hesitate to tell you this because I'm not trying to hang on to this story, and I don't know if like listening to your podcast is like influencing me, but I have always been like 99% sure there was like a red flannel shirt over top of a t-shirt with like some dirty work pants.
Dude, I'm laughing because, of course, I'm not laughing at your story. I'm at the point where I'm wondering if I can be stunned by anything with this Flannel Man thing anymore. And, like you're saying, maybe you, in retrospect, you've clothed him that way. I understand that. I understand that's a possibility. But I would not be surprised in the least if that was the case.
It was a real popular look at the time. Like, this was like the grunge thing was, mostly dead, but the scene, emo scene thing hadn't quite. So, I mean, like, especially in like rural South Carolina, flannel's still a thing. It's never been not a thing.
Sure.
And I sent you that PDF describing this encounter, and I purposely left that out of there. And I wasn't going to say anything unless you asked, to not color the narrative falsely if I couldn't verify that. But in all my memories, man, it's like an open button, red flannel shirt. Yeah. And, mostly what I remember is that eye and like the scraggly, patchy facial hair.
Yeah.
But it was just so weird.
It's an odd thing for someone missing an eye not to wear an eye patch, I guess. I mean, far be it for me to think poorly of someone. I mean, you look like what you look like. If you're missing an eye, you're missing an eye. But I can't say that I've ever seen that.
Yeah, and I've since seen it like a couple TV shows and stuff, but never in real life. And, it kind of gets weirder, man. So, like, my wife grew up in the same hometown I did, and she's, significantly, well, not significantly, she's about 8 years younger than me, give or take. And if she hears this, she's going to kill me for not remembering exactly. But, yeah, so she remembers the same guy from the same bookstore. And she was quite a bit younger. I can't remember how old she told me she was, but he made a comment about the jumper that she was wearing, like something along the lines of like, I like your jumper. And the fact that she saw him and remembers it too is doubly weird.
Yeah. Was it a small enough town where if you were a regular at this bookstore, you would see the same people on a regular basis enough to recognize them?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, for sure. Like, everybody knew pretty much everybody.
You never saw this guy before or after that incident? Yourself, I mean.
No. Never saw him before or after that incident. Actually, in telling my brother that I was maybe going to be on your show and, not to be surprised if he heard me, which until I told him that, he never listened to your show, but I think he's a listener now, so
right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He reminded me of a time when he told me that he saw shadow people on that same stairway landing. And apparently I told him normal people don't see those. And I feel really bad because out of context, it's not the message I wanted to give off. But yeah, no, it's just, I don't know what to make of it. But,
yeah. Was there ever anything else about that house that was particularly strange or odd? Or
that entire period of life was kind of topsy-turvy. In that house specifically, I can't say there was anything else strange or odd that's happened. I'll probably think of something and email you within the next 24 hours. It'll just dawn on me. But
and did you have other out-of-body experiences after that one? I know you said you had the one kind of sleep paralysis thing somewhat recently.
Yeah. So the sleep paralysis was probably like 2 weeks ago, and I think that was just straight up sleep paralysis. And it was kind of cool because in that hypnagogic state between waking and asleep, everything was kind of glowing and vibrating with like these threads of different colors, but I don't know what to make of that, and could probably just chalk that up to some kind of a hypnagogic phenomena.
Yeah, but better that than some weird entity. Yeah.
Yeah, well, about a year ago, I was experimenting with meditation and some yoga and some breathing exercises just for kind of like generalized stress relief. And I was laying in bed meditating on compassion, kind of not really knowing what I was doing, but I soon found myself in that same kind of stillness of being pulled down towards sleep. And next thing I know, I'm out of body, and I feel that same presence of the same thing I felt, just like that absolute evil that I felt when I saw the thing with the red eye. And out of body, I went down my hallway and turned a corner, and I didn't see him, but I felt him, and there was like this glowing, pulsating purple light in the corner of my living room. And at that point in time, I had just kind of had enough of this, and I decided I was going to fight back and didn't really know how. But the next thing I knew, like my being or my awareness just kind of exploded into like this supernova of like white energy, if that doesn't sound too weird. And I was back in my body, and I woke up, and nothing's happened since. And that was about a year ago. So
still, it's interesting that to have the feeling of him there without seeing him again.
Yeah, and I can describe that feeling as just like pure existential dread, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a feeling of like nothing about this is good. Like good for you, good for your friends, good for anybody, good at all. And I don't know what kind of sense to make of that. I just know that fighting back seems to be the answer.
Yeah, trust your instincts, and whatever you did worked. So, it's. I think there's different ways to sort of focus and get out of this stuff when you need to. And I think it's valuable to know how to do that.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And it always kind of takes me back to those stories that I've read and heard from shows like yours, where people may be having an encounter with a gray or something like that, and saying the Lord's Prayer works. Like, even if they're not Christian, but like if they believe it's going to work, then it works. I jokingly said, and it's not my original phrase. I read it somewhere. I said, "Pray the gray away," and and someone was goofing on it on Facebook. I saw, and then I saw someone else said, "Hey, it works. Don't even who cares? It works." And that's kind of my theory with that stuff. It's like, does it matter if it works? Like if it works, it works. But I think it. You could argue that it's maybe, if you didn't want to be religious about it, you could argue that it's maybe just a way to focus your intention. And like, I'm cool with that. Like if that's I'm totally cool with that explanation for it. That's fine by me. No, and I think that's what it comes down to, and that's the phrase I was looking for was the focus of the intention. And even if the words aren't necessarily yours and they're coming from some religious text, if the intention behind them, or if your intention behind them is good, I think that's what matters.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I have to speculate on the one-eyed man being Odin. If I don't, people will yell at me.
Whoa.
As we have established that Odin is a wild man, and I've called Flannel Man half a wild man. So we have to look at him as a possible Odinic archetype. What that means in the landscape of your experience, I don't know, but I did want to mention that so somebody didn't yell at me for not mentioning it.
I don't know how I didn't put those together. I've heard you mention that the Flannel Man had some Odin archetypes going on, and I'm pulling up Odin to kind of Google, see if anything fits like archetypical wise there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. But I just don't know what to make of it. I will testify in any court at any time from here until whenever that the experience happened and that I saw him in real life shortly thereafter.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So even if we're not talking about, like, let's say he was a real person, flesh and blood. If you were given that preview, like, that's another, like, kind of glitch in the Matrix kind of moment, where you were given this sort of preview of him in your OBE. It's bizarre, but there seems to be, it just has that weirdness feel of these, not even saying this guy is necessarily a Flannel Man, but it has that weird feeling of these other Flannel Man accounts to it.
Yeah, and like what this one had that I don't know if the other Flannel Men have had, but you feel free to correct me, is this one just had, like, on both sides of it, in the OBE and in the waking world, it just had this air of ill intent, is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, very few of them. We've had like one or two. I think the woman who woke up, she and her daughter saw the guy that was in her house. I don't think she was real happy with the feeling. And then I had an early Flannel Man where a woman saw him as a little girl, red glowing eyes, and I think is one of the two I have where it had glowing eyes, and she was not real happy with them. She got a really negative feeling from it. But for the most part, yeah, most people are not reporting negative experiences or feelings or anything.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I'm perpetually scratching my head. I think it's awesome that you're out there collecting the stories. And
well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing yours.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tim. You guys have a wonderful night.
Strange Familiars is brought to you by our patrons. I want to thank our patrons, every one of you. You make Strange Familiars possible. If you like what we do here at Strange Familiars and you want to help us continue to make the show, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon. That's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. We do full extra shows every month for our patrons, at least one extra show every month. Sometimes we do 2, even 3 sometimes. And $3 a month gets you that extra content and helps us make Strange Familiars. There are other levels of support as well. You can get things like t-shirts, stickers, pins, patches, and more. You can check out all the levels of support at Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. If you don't like the idea of a monthly subscription, you can help us out with a one-time donation. Check out the show notes at strangefamiliars.com. And there's a paypal.me link there. That helps a great deal as well. Another thing that helps is if you like and subscribe to Strange Familiars wherever you're listening, and give us nice 5-star reviews. Now we're going to hear from Joe, who's going to tell us a story about a giant fox he saw, about a scary trip to a haunted insane asylum, and something very, very strange that he and his mother saw in a restaurant. We're talking with Joe, who had a experience with a strange animal and a couple other experiences as well, but can you start us off with this weird fox creature?
Yeah, so I grew up by like Rochester, New York, outside in like this small town, farm country, houses like every like 500 yards or so. And my barn was across the street. We had our chicken coop over there and the pasture and all that. So home alone, 13, 14 years old, look across the street and I see a fox, well, I thought it was a fox, come out of like the tree line. So I grabbed the 22, was on the porch, run across the street, and well, I didn't run across the street, ran up to the street. I'm probably about 10, 12 feet away from it, and it's like literally like the same height as me. I'm not super tall, but I was probably like 5'1", 5'2" at the time, and it's just like looking me in the eyes, and I'm looking at this thing, and the only thing I find online that like an actual animal that it looked like was like a red-maned wolf from South America. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not, but I'll look it up.
Yeah, it looks like a really tall fox with like a bigger mane around it, really, really long legs. And that's like, was real slender, but like, was like, I was looking at this thing like almost eye level, like, well, this is the biggest fox I've ever seen. And I was like, I don't think this 22 is going to stop it, because I shot like a possum or a raccoon, you know, hit him a couple times, you know, they had rabies or whatever, trying to put him down, and, you know, a couple bullets it took for each one. So I was like, I don't got enough guns for this thing. And it's looking at me, and it, I don't know, it's probably, I felt like it was a long time just staring at this thing. And, you know, I didn't raise the gun or anything, and like I just got this like, you're not gonna shoot me, like laughing at me. And then literally instead of turning around and walking back in the woods, it like backed up. You know, most, you know, dogs or anything, they don't walk straight back, but this thing like walked back into the woods, like just creeped back a couple steps, gone. Never saw it again. But yeah, that was one thing, and it just how big it was. I told my dad, he said it was like a coyote with mange and all this, but then he was laughing like, oh, well, that burial mound is over there, because probably about 20 feet away was this mound that when I was real young, it was a lot taller. Maybe it was because of like, I was younger, but I think I got eroded over time. And, you know, this is like I'm 33, so I remember it from when I was like 6, 7 years old, just always being over there. And it was like really right next to that thing that happened. So that was like the first weird thing that, besides like, I don't know, my house was, I think it was haunted, but my parents were always like, oh, it's the house settling, it's the house settling. It was an old-ass house, excuse my French. You know, I'd see like, you know, shadows out of the corner of my eyes, like just movement and stuff, and just everyone's like, oh, it's your imagination, which it probably was. But I asked my dad a couple months ago, like, hey, what's up with the footsteps on this, you know, the stairs, the hallway creaking all night long? And he was like, oh, I never heard any of that. He goes, because I snore too loud. I was like, well, the house is haunted. He laughed. He goes, probably, you know, something like that. But besides that, I'm not too much at the house. So then, obviously, I knew best. So when I was like 17, moved to the city. I was living in a punk house at the time with a couple people. You know, a couple people lived on the couch. I shared a room with somebody. One of them, his name was John. And then we had a friend named Ray. And being bored, having no money, we used to break into this old psych hospital. It's about like 15 stories high. This is probably like one of the scariest moments of my life. So it was like a really rainy night, and we'd been in this place probably like 15, 20 times. You know, you always thought you heard footsteps or saw like something out of the corner of your eye, but like there was always people in there doing graffiti. People would go there and party. But as we went, the more and more we went, you know, the less people we saw, because they had a security car that would go by every hour. So you kind of had to watch, wait for it to go by, and we would jump up on you can't do it anymore, but there was a shed. And we'd climb up on the shed and then jump up onto a roof that had like a little castle wall around it. And the first weird thing that was for real, that like wasn't just our imaginations, was we finally got up to the roof, because there's a lot of doors that are locked, so you had to like go from one wing to the other to go up staircases. The elevator shafts are empty, so it's pretty like sketchy in there. So when we got to the top, we opened the hatch to the roof. They were like, oh, you go first. So I went up on the roof, and I get up on the roof, and I hear, and I know because we had goats, and one time somebody bought one and they didn't have anywhere to kill it, so he's like, oh, can I do it here? And, you know, I heard what a goat sounded like, getting its throat slit. And in the woods, literally at the bottom of the tower, or, you know, the building, hear a goat screaming like it's getting its throat cut. I was like, oh, shoot, no one's going to believe me if I'm hearing this. So I reached behind me, and it was actually Ray, grabbed his arm, yank him up. And I was like, yo, you hear that? He's like, oh, what the hell? What's going on? I don't want to go back down out there. You know, it was real intense screaming. Obviously, no one else heard it, made fun of us. So Ray, he doesn't believe in any ghosts, nothing. He wasn't scared. He was like, I'm not scared of anything. There's no spirits here. There's nothing bad here. Because there's all sorts of rumors, like experiments on patients. It closed in '89. And I think it was probably open in the early 60s. So it wasn't open very long, but it got shut down for some reason. And I was working construction at the time. And every construction crew that went there like quit within a couple of days, saying it was haunted. People were getting seriously injured. So no one to this day, like everything around it, from the ground up, brand new mental hospital, all new businesses, everything all around it. It's all done up, but this building they will not touch. And they've tried to turn it into apartments for the colleges. Just no one wants to work on it, I guess. So the goat screaming was like the one weird thing. And then being broke and kind of scumbags, we decided to go in there, and the copper prices during the time were really high. We're like, yo, the basement is loaded with copper wire and piping. We wouldn't have to cut anything. Literally reach up, pull down, fill a couple bags. We were like, oh, we'll get to eat, like have a good time, you know, like whatever. So I'm completely sober. Like I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't anything. The one kid drank and the other kid didn't. So we're like, okay, we're going to go in there. It's a real dark, rainy night. The wind's going crazy, you know, perfect spooky night. So we're all like joking, like, oh, tonight's the night. We're going to get, you know, the ghosts are going to come get us. We're all laughing, stop it. You know, it was pretty intense. And, you know, the weather, we were like, oh, it's real bad out here. At least, like, we knew inside the building really well. So we were like, at least when we're inside, like, you know, the weather can't affect us. Not a big deal. So being broke and kind of scumbag-ish. I knew a lot of homeless people. Not saying that if you're friends with homeless people, you're a scumbag, but I just hung out where I was and, you know, gave homeless people my cans because, you know, whatever. So they would swing by once in a while. We knew this one guy. We called him Voodoo Bum because he had like a skull, like little tiny skull necklace on all the time and had like a staff. And we were always super nice to Voodoo Bomb. Not that, like, I don't know, the other ones would laugh, but I was super nice to him. So like, I don't want no voodoo put on me. So we're at the gas station about to go. We got bags, tools, flashlights, everything. We see Voodoo Bomb, and he creeps out like the corner, and he's looking at us all crazy. He goes, "What you guys gonna do tonight?" And we're like, gonna go do some things. He's like, "Oh, be careful, they are out tonight." We were like, "What's out tonight?" He's like, "They're out tonight." So, we're all thinking like, oh, like maybe some people out robbing people or something, because, it's a pretty violent city. So we were like, whatever, no one's going to be where we're going, so whatever. So we get there, park, we carry our bags, we sit where we always sit, wait for the truck to go by, run up, jump in. And when you jump up on the castle wall, you climb, as I was saying earlier, you climb over, and then all the windows are all boarded up with plywood up to like the third floor. And there's a chain link fence, and when you climb through that, you're in a stairwell. We knew to go down, obviously, gets us to the basement, but we knew, because we've been in there a bunch, that going down that one, you had to crawl under a bunch of pipes, probably like 10, 12 feet. It kind of sucked, you had to, get down like, 2 feet above you and crawl, with a flashlight and cobwebs and all that, carrying a bag. You didn't want to be the first person, you didn't want to be the last person.
Right.
Obviously, I was the last person, which continues for the rest of the night. So we really knew this place really, really well. Like, we got to the point where we could mess with other people that were in there. Like, if they, we'd try to spook other people. We had a good time in there. So we really knew the building really well, except for one wing that was, like, welded shut all the way up. And that's where supposedly the morgue was in one of those. In that wing and one of the floors, we didn't know which one, but we thought it'd be so cool to find and take pictures in the morgue and all that. Never could find the morgue. So we crawling under, it's going the same way, everything's exactly the same. No bad feelings, no bad vibes, nothing. We're feeling great. So we're crawling through, and it's taking like quite a bit longer than like, the 8-10 feet. And I'm like, "Yo, are you leading us the wrong way? Like, which way are we going?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know." He goes, "But we're still in the basement. We're good." So we stand up when we get out, and we're in a hallway that leads to another staircase. And we all get really excited. We kind of forget about the copper for a minute, that we're there for something, because we're in the other wing. We have never seen this part of the building, So we start walking up the stairs, and the stairway is blocked with like a chain fence. They try to keep people out of there pretty well. They block off like the roof access and all that stuff once in a while, but, we just break through. But so the chain link fence blocking us from going up. So we know, well, we'll just get out here and go to, all the wings were the same. So we'll go to the other end of the hallway where the staircase is, that will go down to the basement, and we'll just continue. And then now that we know I don't know how we figured we were going to get back there, but we just figured we had to crawl a different direction to get back to the spot, so we weren't too worried about it. The hallway is probably like, I want to say like 20, 30 feet long with like, we had a very like, it was obviously a mental hospital, but it had like a school vibe. The whole thing felt like they really viewed people with mental disorders as like children. Like, it was just like bunnies painted on the walls. And mind you, no one's been in it for like 20 years, so it's all paint and looks like, the paint's peeling where it looks like giant claws are scratching it, stuff like that, extra spooky. So it was just like carrots with, rabbit heads and just weird stuff all over the walls, or like people doing graffiti, like real crazy stuff. No graffiti in the swing, like no one had been here in a long time, lots of dust. So we're walking down, checking all the doors are locked, which is weird because, the rest of the building is pretty open except for this one wing. We probably get like 10 feet away from the door, and I'm just feeling like, oh wow, it just seems like, I feel like, we should turn around. I'm thinking it, and I'm looking at the kid John, who does believe in like, ghosts and spirits or whatever, and he's looking all wide-eyed. And then Ray's just shaking his head like, "You guys are trying to get me." Like, he strides ahead, and all of a sudden he stops, because we all stop at once, and he's like a step ahead of us. And we hear like, I can't do it, but like, either it sound like the wind like hitting the corner or something, making like a high-pitched like girl scream almost, but like one note. So we're all like, "That's the wind." Like, why we were not worried about that. It was just the wind. We're all laughing like, "Oh, your heart's going." We're like, "Oh," like, you're scared. No, you're scared. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I, take a couple steps ahead. I'm shining the light at the door. It's just a solid door, and walk in, and then all of a sudden the same scream, and it sounds more like it sounded like a little girl screaming. And then this time another scream joins in with it. So every step we take, because I'm like, I need to, Ray's yelling, like, oh, somebody's messing with us. They got a stereo behind that door. I know it. So we're walking. We're probably we'd only move 2-3 feet. And I was like, I can't step anymore. I'm looking at John, and he's looking at me like, I can't move. It felt it felt like trying to walk through water, but not wet. Like I wasn't wet feeling. It was just heavy. It was intense. I never felt anything like that. Hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. So I take a half a step forward, and it's you just hear my ears. I can't hear anything. And the ringing, just screaming, just sounds like 10, 15 voices screaming, and then it would be they wouldn't stop, but one would stop, and then another one would keep going. So it was that whatever it was catching about to do it. This kid, Ray, the one that doesn't believe anything, goes, this place is, he swears, often haunted, and books it. He starts running, and I'm not going to stick around, so I start running, and I'm the one with the 2 bags. So we're running. John's in front of me. He's Ray's in front, and I'm running in the back, and I was pretty fat at the time, so I'm trying to keep up and carry these tools because it was what I needed for work. So I was I'm not leaving these, I need these. So I'm running. We crawl under the pipes, and I'm hearing I don't know what it was, but there was something behind me, footsteps, and I was if something soft was not heavy, boom, 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 but it was something soft, and then it would drag. It was a step and then a drag. It was right behind me underneath the pipes, and I'm crawling. I don't want to turn around because I'm just moving, and all I can see is the dude's butt in front of me. We get out, start running up the stairs. We go up. We had to go up 2 flights. So we're running. I'm hearing this I don't know what was movement behind me. They jump, he goes dive into the thing. John gets stuck, and I'm a little, probably 4 or 5 steps behind. I literally throw my bags before me too, dive head first, catch my whole jeans, my shirt, everything ripped on this chain link. I'm standing there looking at my shirt. I don't hear the noise behind us. I was whew. We all scramble all the way to the opposite side of the wall, away from the opening, and we're all leaning there. I was you guys hear those footsteps? And they're yeah, what the hell is this? And then we start laughing because we're a bunch of, cocky young men. We don't think no one wants to be the weak guy, we don't want to get made fun of and all that. So it's a sigh of relief, oh, we out, we're safe. So we're laughing. All of a sudden, probably we were laughing for 10, 15 seconds. All the plywood on the walls of the windows all around us, they're all boarded up. Just start shaking fists. It sounded like fists were pounding every window all the way around us. Probably 10 windows on each side. We tell you, we did not look to see if security was there. We just threw our bags over. I didn't even jump on the shed. I jumped off, hit the ground, rolled, grabbed my bags, and we didn't normally there's a stealthy approach to get in and out. We did not care. We ran right across busy intersection, right to the car, and drove away. And me and John talked about it once after that, and the other guy refused to even say that we went there that night. He called us liars, all sorts of stuff. He was real angry when we brought that up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was not. I think because it scared him more than anything, because he didn't think of anything like that before. You know what I mean?
Did you ever go back there?
Yeah, so I was terrified for 5, 6 years, and I was I will never go back in there. That was scary. And then I kind of had the realization when I stopped living my life in such poor lifestyle. I came to the realization that if I didn't go there with the intent to take something out of the building, I would be fine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And honestly, the view from the roof is the most beautiful thing. The city lit up, and you can see the stars if you looked away from the city. So probably 8 years later, I went back in there and didn't have any problems, no issues, nothing.
I don't know if I'd have gone back.
I really was so, I don't know, maybe I did some research. I read some books on things along these lines, and I was I really feel whatever it was does not like people messing with the building. Like, that's what it is. As long as you're there, not taking something, not trying to change the place, I don't know. But for all the real estate that goes up, it's the one building that hasn't been touched, and it would make like an amazing apartment complex for the college. Like, really, really would. I just had a really good feeling about going back after, you know, I was like, well, I'm not going to take anything. I'm not here to piss them off. So
Right.
yeah.
Did you go into the same area, or did you kind of stick to
Oh, no, I won't go. You couldn't pay me enough to go in the basement. Like, not anywhere. I will not call on any. I went to the roof, and that was it. Like, I knew the way to get there. Like, I was not going in the basement. No. No, that's off limits for me.
Did you go by yourself?
No, I went with one or two other people the last time I went, yeah. I wouldn't go in there by myself either. Like, even before that happened, I wouldn't have gone in. It doesn't have like a real good vibe, and I think it's just like the atmosphere, stale air, like it's kind of damp in spots, and, you know, just the paint, debris. There's a lot of weird, interesting things in there. Like, it closed in '89, and the Bills went to the Super Bowls, which, you know, they're an hour away, so there's a lot of fans here. Went to the Super Bowl in '91, '92, and '93. And I think on the 13th floor in one of the bathrooms, in the men's bathroom, each stall is plastered. There's 3 stalls. One stall has 91 newspaper clippings, literally from like the stall from the bottom to the top on the ceiling, the floor, everything, 91. And then the next stall is 92 and 93 newspaper clippings from the Buffalo Bills.
Huh.
Kind of weird that somebody went in there, like, you know, 2 years after, and then every year since, to decorate a bathroom on the 13th floor, you know.
Yeah, right.
Train. Yeah. But there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of urban legends and stuff about the place, but I did a lot of research on it to see, like, if the doctors doing experiments on patients, those, like, stories were true and all that. And I couldn't find it. One guy got charged with, like, malpractice or something, if I remember, but it wasn't, like, on the scale of what people said, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How it's made out to be. But yeah, it definitely has, like, yeah. It's an interesting place for sure.
So there's one more account that you were talking about, is it happening in a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, so this is a little bizarre. Like, I don't, you know, this is just what I saw. I'm just telling you what I saw. I don't know what I believe about the situation, but this is what I saw. So my mom, she's super, super Christian, loves God, believes in the demons having an effect on your lives and all this. And so we go to this Chinese restaurant by a college that we heard had good takeout, but so I don't know. Anyways, we go there. We've never been there, and it's like empty. There's no one in there except for one kind of large man sitting at a table, like 3, you know, not a very big place, 3-4 tables away from us. So the staff comes out, like, there was a lot of staff for, like, how dead it was, you know. Normally places have, you know, a couple people, like, waiters and waitresses, but there was, like, 3 or 4 of them, the hostess, everything. So we order our food. We're sitting there. It's taking a while to get our food, and as we're sitting there, when my mom's not comfortable, you can really tell, like, her eyes get a little shifty and all that. Like, she just starts looking around, like, I don't know. I could tell it was something. You know, my mom, I just know my mom real well. She gets a little crazy look in her eye when she's feeling some type of way about something. So she's looking uncomfortable. I'm like, what's up? And she's like, do you hear this? And I look at this. I had noticed that the dude had about, like, 4 plates full of food in front of him and, like, a stack of, like, dirty dishes, like, next to him, like small plates and appetizer stuff just stacked up. And they were coming out, bringing him more food, a steady stream of food going to him, and then the plates getting taken, like, real quick. And he's eating, and we, you know, I mean, I guess it's not polite, but we're like, you know, this guy can really put it away. Like, he must be really hungry. Like, I've never seen anyone eat the food. And we're, like, joking, like, you know, maybe he's training for, like, a food competition. So all of a sudden, like, we're still waiting for our food. We didn't even get our drinks or anything yet. And you just hear, like, the man that's eating all the food starts talking in what I assume is Chinese. I'm not a language expert, but I've probably heard enough that I guess it sounded like Mandarin to me, and a really deep voice, like a real deep voice, like the deepest man's voice you ever heard. He's talking in. And then all of a sudden he puts his hands on the table and he like kind of pushes back a little bit in his chair, and he's like, in like a higher voice, kind of like mine, he was like, I'm done, I can't eat anymore. I just can't eat anymore. And the people are like, stopped halfway when he did that, and then just continued bringing it, like set food down, took the plates. He's like, I'm telling you, I can't eat anymore. He like smacks his fist on the table. And the deep voice, he's talking to himself, answered in Mandarin or Chinese, and he's like, said something like, you can tell it was an argument he was having with himself. And my mom's like eyes get real wide, and I'm like, this guy is crazy. Like he's like having a conversation about not eating, but he's still eating. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm not thinking anything of it. She's just whispering. She goes, "That's a demon." She starts praying she starts praying under her breath. And literally this guy, he's like, I'm telling you, I'm done. He starts smashing his fist. A couple plates fall. Meanwhile, we were really hungry. I think I just got to work something, and we were starving. We were like, we want our food to go now. And then I look at my mom and was like, I start feeling like this is getting way too intense. I was like, we should just get out of here. Before we could even get up, he smashed his fist down, pushes himself up, and the bathroom was probably like 3-4 feet away, and he like stumbles to it, like struggling to get in the bathroom. And that's all like, holy hell, that we felt. I guess that's an oxymoron, but just sounded like screaming, smashing. It sounded like the whole bathroom was getting turned upside down. The deep voice is just screaming, like loud. The whole place seemed like, just from the sound was shaking how loud it was. And then my mom, she's like finishing up what she's saying under her breath, praying. I think she starts saying like, in the name of Jesus, protect us, or something like that. And when she said that, the dude came out completely calm, like looked like he was sweating a lot, sits down, doesn't say anything, and just starts eating. And my mom's like, we need to go. I was like, yeah, amen. Like, yeah, we do. Wow. Yeah, so that was about the other one. Yeah.
Did the staff look like they were reacting to him? The staff at the restaurant?
Now, if the staff was reacting, I would have thought this guy's just like doing it for attention, or is a crazy person, needs some help. But the staff like ignored that he was even doing any of this.
Wow.
Like, just kept bringing him food. And I'm telling you, this guy probably ate like, we were probably there for 8-10 minutes. He probably ate like 6 plates plus, egg rolls on plates and all that stuff. Like, a bunch of stuff. He just looked like a guy training for a competition, eating just stuff in his face.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's a weird one.
So, just real bizarre. My mom, obviously, that's a demon. That guy's possessed by a demon, and they're in on it. She's like, we're never going there again. I think the place definitely closed down. I think we drove by a couple months later and it was closed, and we were both like pretty happy about that. Like, yeah, glad it's closed because no one needs to go there.
Wow. To go all the way back to the beginning, and this fox creature, did it look just like a normal, like red fox, just kind of enlarged?
Okay, so yeah, I should have explained that a little more. It looked like body-wise a little bigger, like a little more muscular, like, foxes, especially around here. Like, we have really big coyotes out around here. They're supposedly, I watched some documentary, they're mixed with wolves from like northeastern Canada. They came down and all that. So I know what a coyote looks like. Like, I've shot at a couple and all that. And it looked like a fox. The face was a little more in between a fox and a wolf, but it had like where it's like a mane like behind its neck, like was a lot thicker than a fox's. It was like real thick hair on its shoulder, like from its ears back was really dark black, dark reddish black. I don't know, really, it just had like a mane, like a Rhodesian Ridgeback, but a little fluffier. If you look up, red mane wolf, it looked a lot like that, but not like that. Like, that's the close. I was really big into like biology and like animal. I love animals. Always was in the woods and all that, and I knew every animal in the area plus some. So I like searched like encyclopedias, went to the library, didn't have the internet at the time, did a lot of research, and I finally was like, this is it. And that's why I was really sure of for a long time. I was like, this is it. And then I was just telling myself that because I knew it wasn't exactly that. It was something that I don't know how to describe it.
Right.
Not to say it seemed like intelligent or had like, you know, anything like that, but just the way it looked down, it looked like looking down on me, but like laughing about it, like just like a fox, like, you know, like a fox is like sly and all that. It was giving me a sly look, like you can't do anything to me, laughing at me.
Wow.
I'm not like I never felt threatened, like, because if I did, I would have, you know, put the gun up and shot at it, but I never even raised the gun because I just was like, this is hopeless, like, you know, real pointless. And like we had chicken, like we grew up like eating what we grew, like chicken, like we ate our chickens, our eggs, everything, you know what I mean? So it was like, if a fox got the chicken and I watched it, my dad was going to be mad at me, you know what I mean? But I don't know, I just looked at it and I was like, you know, I didn't know what to say. Like, I just was like, this isn't supposed to be real. Or if it is, it's not supposed to be here. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's all I could really think about that, yeah. But it was very dark around, because it was like, I was right in line with, I didn't get like a side view, because literally just backed up into the woods, like a couple steps, like very smooth motion, like not like, I have 2 dogs and they don't walk backwards very well, you know what I mean? It's like a little jerky, you know, they're feeling behind them before they start. This thing just creeped back into the woods and was gone. And there's, not that, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but there's that mound, and then probably like 50 yards away is like a raised section of ground. It looks like a footpath that somebody raised up. It's probably like 2 feet high, 3 feet wide, that like cuts through those whole woods, like half, like divides it right in the middle. It's real weird. I've never seen anything like that anywhere, but I always asked my dad what that was, because I used to go in those woods and play a lot, which is no squirrels. You'd see a couple birds on the edges, but there was like, I call it the quiet woods when I was a kid, because it was quiet. There was nothing in there.
Oh,
and I always asked my dad, like, what's up with the road? I call it my road. And he's like, oh, that's the Indian. He goes, there was a, you know, my dad, he always used to drive, he was a farmer, so we drove around, talked to all the old timers all the time. So he was like, oh, well, I was told that there was a massacre and they buried them like side by side. And he goes, it was way bigger back in the day when he first bought the property. But we had like, that area floods a lot. So like, I went back a couple of years ago, and you know, really hard to recognize anything in there, because it's just like the mud and everything. Just there's a swamp nearby, so the ground changes a lot. Pretty, you know, surprised how fast it changed from when I was younger. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was a little weird over there. So,
how tall did you say it stood?
So I was probably like 5'1" to 5'3", and its eyes were about level with me. I don't know, being, you know, road distance apart isn't too far, but maybe like height seems more, you know, maybe its ears were up to the top of my head or so, but I was looking at it right in the eyes. Like, it was probably about 4'8" to 5 feet, I'd say.
Wow. Which is considerably bigger than, if you look up the red-maned wolf, I mean, that's considerably bigger than they get.
Yeah, and I was like, this thing's the size of me. That's why I knew a 22 wasn't going to do anything, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I was like, maybe if I shoot it in the eye, but like, I thought that afterwards, because I kind of beat myself up afterwards, like, damn, like, good thing it didn't get anything, because I'd be in a lot of trouble, you know?
Yeah. I never saw it again?
Nope, never saw that ever again, ever. But yeah, the woods and the swamp are real weird out there. Like, I grew up thinking that woods were quiet. Like, I went, you know, when we started going hiking, when I grew up, going out into like the Adirondacks and stuff, it's like, wow, these woods are alive. And the woods I was in as a kid was not alive. No, like hardwoods, acorns, you know, perfect squirrel. Because I had a 22 as a kid. Probably wasn't the smartest idea. I had a BB gun. I probably would, you know, shot at squirrels if I ever saw one. I moved to like the city, and I was like, y'all got squirrels here? Like, this is bizarre. I didn't know we had squirrels in New York. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
You know, a little weird, but like, I never saw any of that. You know, just pretty much predators. The foxes and coyotes everywhere. That's about it. But that's probably why, now that I think about it. But it still was a bizarre bizarre woods. I went actually hiking this winter up the swamp. You can walk up when it freezes, and still dead silent on the sunniest day in the winter I could find. Like, dead silent, no birds, nothing.
Yeah, that's always
not
creepy.
that I know. Not that I know if that has anything to do with anything. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, yeah. I mean, you never really know for sure. That's the weird thing about that silence. It's sometimes the woods will go quiet, and it just happens to be that time where the woods go quiet. But if it's consistently quiet, that's very strange.
Yeah. My dad always said, like, I was always like, well, why don't you, because he hunts deer, he loves hunting deer, archery, all that. I'm like, well, why don't you hunt across the swamp? Like, you own the property. He's like, there ain't nothing over there. Like, there's nothing over there. He just knew it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, I think.
Well, Joe, thanks for sharing your stories.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for talking to me and letting me talk about it.
Sure thing. All right, our last guest tonight is Justin, who's going to tell us about an albatwitch-like creature he saw, a black-eyed man, and a rather large black wolf or black dog. Okay, tonight we're talking with Justin, who has an encounter with something that may or may not be an albatwitch or something like it. And then we're going to talk about some other stuff as well. But let's start off with this creature sighting. Where was this, and about how old were you when it happened?
Okay, yeah. So I was about, let me think, I'm probably 16 to 17 at the time. And this was driving a road that I've driven every week of my life, if not almost every day, especially after I started driving after that. You know, it was basically the one road to anywhere from the house. So we took this all the time. And so me and my dad were just coming back one night from a meeting we were at. I actually recently talked to him about this too, and he remembers it. And we saw it on the side of the road. I don't know if you want me to just jump into details of the whole experience or...
Yeah.
Okay, so we were coming home. It would have been about 9:30 to 10 o'clock at night, if I remember how long those used to take. So we're going up a slight hill. There's a red barn to the left, and it's curving around to the right, and there's kind of old, overgrown farmland. It's quite dark. I don't think there's a moon out. And it was, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was sometime in the late fall, because I don't remember any foliage. So it would have been just, limbs and briars, and you know how gnarly old apple trees can get. And it was apple trees, I think, after going back and looking at it on both sides of the road.
Which is interesting. Another apple orchard connection. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
So we were headed southbound, and coming up a little bit, kind of cresting this low hill, and then I see something in the left lane, and it's almost onto the shoulder, and it's this flash of white. My dad says he remembers it. He just describes it to me as a flash of white light, whatever. He didn't really go into too much detail. That might have been because my mom's there. He's kind of the Mulder, she's kind of the Scully. So I did get a pretty good look at it, though. And so I always begin by saying, I saw something white. I don't know what it was. It moved like nothing I've ever seen. And, I grew up, we had a huge amount of fields back behind the house, hills, woods. I grew up, just running around through them. I had calluses on my feet. I can still walk over gravel driveways without a problem. So I was a wild child. And then we moved, and we had a gravel pit in a swamp out back, so much the better. So I spent most of my life outside. I've always been really interested in animals and stuff, and I have books on local animals, and so I'm very, very passionate about, every kind of animal that there is around here, and that wasn't an animal that we have around here. So people always say, oh, do you think it was a weasel? Because I describe it had a very fluid kind of gliding or undulating motion to it as it moved. It was very strange. And so they say a weasel or an otter. And I say no, because it was about 2 feet tall. It was white. It did kind of like move in that almost like an inchworm motion that like otters might have. Kind of they roll forward and they bring their hinds up kind of basically like an inchworm motion, yeah. It had something like that, but it also had another kind of motion to the body, and this I saw extremely distinctly. And I can still see it to this day. It's burned into my memory. As it was moving, as it was doing this undulating, I saw something stick out from the back. So you have this normal-looking motion, then you have a backward motion sticking out, and that was its elbow. And that could not have been anything else. And so my impression was that this was a small, basically, it was moving like a great ape moved, except it was 2 feet high and basically looked albino. And because I could see its elbow sticking out as it was moving across the road down into the ditch. And then I get the impression that it looked over its shoulder at us as it was like, just as it was disappearing into the brush. And it was the strangest thing.
It was hair covered.
Yeah.
White. The color was white. Mm-hmm. You said about 2 feet tall. And was it bipedal?
Yep. Yes, but it appeared to exhibit a knuckle walking motion.
Ah, okay. If it had stood up straight, would it have been taller than 2 feet?
Yeah, probably it would have been a little bit taller than 2 feet if it had stood up straight.
So it was kind of hunched over.
Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe 2.25, 2.5 feet would be a fair estimation if it stood up. Yeah, because it was pretty hunched over, but its arms were also, they were not humanly proportioned.
If it had been a human that size, longer arms?
Yeah, if it had been a human that size, the arms probably would have reached to the knees instead of to the mid-thigh.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a look at its face at all?
I feel like I must have, but I don't really remember it. So my memory is eidetic. I don't have like a photographic memory, but I do see images, kind of more impressionistic. I guess I should say this. The fur on the animal, have you ever seen like an old guy's hair? And it's kind of like 2 to 3 inches long. It's white, but you can still also see the skin at the bottom, so it's not very dense. So it looked just like that. So I could see it wasn't like monochromatic, because I have a distinct impression of seeing both the fur, but also an impression of either bald patches, perhaps, I think bald patches in the axillary region and, in the armpit region, and I think on the elbows. And then I could also just like see the skin underneath. And I feel like there was some modeling, like some areas of the skin were a little bit darker, but only just. I'd scratch that off the things I'm sure about list.
So your father was driving, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you both saw it.
Yes, I had a better look at it. He says he definitely saw something white. Previously, I talked to him just Sunday about this, actually, but previously he had said that it did look like a little white monkey.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. And I think, with this thing, memory tends to fade over time, so this would have been 2006, 2007.
Did you talk about it all on the rest of the drive, or was it just one of those things where you just kind of...
We were about 5 minutes from home, and as I recall, it was just like, look, Pat, did you see that? What was that? I don't know. It looked like a monkey. Yeah. And we, craning that was basically how it went, craning our heads. Mm-hmm. And there really wasn't that much to talk about, just like kind of sitting in silence as we tried to figure it out.
Right.
I think we might have tossed out like ideas like, do you think it was a mink? No, like that. It was, right. Yeah, I mean, we both saw it very clearly. I mean, just like we might have seen a deer crossing the road, except instead of a deer, it was puckwudgie or a albatwitch or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, whatever these little things are. You never saw it again?
No, I've never seen anything like that again. I only just thought about this, but so there's a YouTube channel, Bob Gimlin, but it's spelled Gym.
Yeah.
He's very ape in the woods, but he's the whole reason I got into paranormal stuff. He's very ape in the woods, but he is top-notch, amazing stuff. He's the whole reason I got into deeper paranormal stuff, too. And I also think, woo is great. Woo definitely exists, but you can't forget ape in the woods stuff, which just makes it so much more mysterious, But so anyway, so he was talking about the Kushtaka, which translates from, it's a Northwestern First Nations term. I forget the tribe, but it translates to otter man. And he goes into like dissecting this, and it comes down to the kind of motion they exhibit, because they actually move like otters do in this undulating motion. And he actually goes through in this episode, I'll send you a link later, he talks about the kind of motion that these Sasquatch or Skookum or Krishtaka exhibit, and he kind of details multiple accounts where this kind of like gliding or undulating or like they're in water, that motion is described. And to top it all off, one of the people whose accounts he's retelling describes their motion as sylph-like, which, you know, Josh Cutchin would be, you know, insert fairy lore here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I mean, if they are natural creatures, I think the way they move lends to so many people being confused by them being natural creatures because of the smoothness of the movement and so forth.
I flip-flop back and forth, you know. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, clearly they're, you know, 100% this, but then they, you know, it's so mysterious because clearly they're, you know, they exhibit such normal characteristics but such paranormal characteristics. And are there two kind of entities? Is there like a escasis or masquerade going on? Like, you know, I mean, you know way more about Bigfoot than me, but it's just infinitely mysterious.
Oh yeah. Now, when you saw the patches of skin, did you get the impression that it was albino? Were they pinkish, or were they another color?
You know, I definitely got the impression that it was albino. The pigmentation seemed more like modeling liver spots or piebald, as opposed to like the condition where, you know, patches of melanin on the skin break down and others don't. So you get like, I guess that you could call that piebald.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I think that might be inappropriate if you refer to humans as that. Anyway, but vitiligo. That's it.
Okay.
It didn't look like that. It looks like natural coloration, like maybe a bruise, or, you know, maybe even just flushed skin. Like, you know, sometimes your elbows are red and the rest of your body's, you know, a different color, or something like that, flushed. So yeah, I definitely got the impression that it was not pigmented. That was, yeah, more of like a flush or a bruise or a liver spot.
So just to be clear, you think it was an albino creature and not just a white creature?
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Morlocks from The Time Machine. Oh man, that was the scariest episode of Wishbone, that show on PBS. But yeah, it looked very near to albino, as opposed to a creature that's non-albino but has white fur. You know, because there's in albino creatures, there's just this like more translucent, or there's a different quality to the hair because it has no pigmentation at all.
Right.
It's like clear. So yeah, it definitely seemed to resemble that.
That's really interesting. The number of white creature reports that I am seeing lately is really interesting. You know, I do not know what to make of that. We always had them. I mean, I've tracked white Bigfoot reports in Pennsylvania back to the 1800s, so, you know, they've been here, the reports of these white creatures, but it seems like there's just this storm of white creature reports lately. I keep running into them. I don't know if you heard way back when we did the Devil Monkey show with Kelly and Aaron. Yeah. That whatever they saw was white as well.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. You know, albinism can be genetically passed on, or, you know, what's the purpose of this stuff?
Yeah, and
honestly,
then if it relates back to like archetypes.
Everybody's seen at Site 7 has been either light gray or white.
Interesting.
Like except the Lori did see like a weasel-like creature, and I believe that was more of a natural brown color, like a giant weasel or something. She saw the way she described it, but everything else that we've seen there has been either white or light gray. So that's, you know, I don't know what to make.
Yeah, I know somebody did once. This came up in conversation. I'm not sure if it was my idea or theirs, but it kind of came up during the course. So Dave Pilates is a very controversial figure. And somebody's saying, well, you know, he talks about Bigfoot being so-and-so, just another tribe, whereas other First Nations people, you know, they have very different, you know, all sorts of tribes have very different impressions of Bigfoot. Sometimes it's another tribe, sometimes it's a spirit creature, sometimes it's, you know, so it's all across the board. And so what kind of came up in conversation was, well, maybe all these different reports, all the different appearances, it's different subspecies or different tribes across the United States. So you have the Dogman, you have the white ones, you have the brown ones, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean,
the difference.
It could be possible. I mean, certainly the descriptions vary an incredible amount, from baboon-faced things that stand on two legs to, things that look like cavemen to, these little ones. I mean, they're just all over the map, the descriptions of them.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly if there is a flesh and blood element, obviously the ones, the Miaka skunk ape is not related to things seen in Alaska because they're hundreds of miles apart. So obviously there's speciation going on if they are flesh and blood.
I mean, I love the mystery. So when I say it's it's such a puzzle, it's with love that I say that, because I love the entire thing. It's just I'm in love with the whole mystery. I just and I'm willing to go down any path, at least for a little while. I lean a certain way, but it's just it's because my heart and my love is in folklore and always will be. But I'm certainly willing to put on the cryptozoological hat here and there and explore the idea of them being different species and so forth. It's just something I just love the whole mystery.
I think you have to be able to wear different masks and dance different dances in order to really find the truth. I think both Valet and Keel alluded to that. You have to be able to have simultaneous theories that you do and don't believe at the same time in order to get anywhere. And if you get locked into one paradigm, you suffer a slow death of curiosity. Well, slow death of understanding.
Yeah. That's the danger.
In a way,
I think
it's nice that it's so varied because it really prevents you from getting locked into one way of seeing things.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Every time you think one thing, something will come along and tap you on the shoulder and say, but what about this?
Yeah.
Speaking of weird stuff, so tell me about this black-eyed person you saw.
Oh, okay. Yes. This actually happened just over 1 year ago, almost to the date, like within a week of a year ago. Basically, I moved out of that area, came down south a little bit more to the big city, going from a tiny town to a, kind of larger city. It's actually technically a city, so that's a big step up. So I'm working at a hospital now. So I had been working there for about a month at this point. So you can check the transition time and life box there. Around this time, I also did have an episode of sleep paralysis. Not sure if it happened before or after, which is frustrating. But anyway, so yes, I was walking back from my break. I was coming down the corridor. There is basically it's a T corridor, T-shaped section with another, walkway off to the left, underneath the left side of the T. And so at that kind of intersection there, you have this bank of elevators. And so people will come from any of the directions and wait for the elevators to go up. I'm coming back from my break, walking up toward the T, and I want to go all the way up to the top and then take a left into the lab. This guy looks like he might have come out of the lower entrance to the left, which would have been the west entrance, which, by the way, is employee only, so I'm not sure how he got in. He could have tailgated somebody, so that's not that mysterious. The first thing that strikes me about this guy is that he has a very interesting physiology. And I mean, I find it really interesting to kind of study aspects of French, these are French characteristics, these are Scottish, and try to kind of guess people's, their background. I find that quite interesting and cool. So I'm always interested when I see somebody with interesting characteristics. I also used to do a lot of sketching too, so I'm always looking at people.
Right.
So when I was young, my friends had a mask of a man who was bald with big ears and a big nose, very, very goofy, very caricature. This guy looked like the person that mask was based on. He had very large ears that stuck out. He had a very big nose, bald head. He looked as far as you could get into a caricature while still actually being a human being. It was so strange. And he had leathery brown skin, like construction worker tan.
Mm-hmm.
Almost Greek. Almost. And I was not really into paranormal stuff at all at this point. I didn't know about black-eyed anything. So this was kind of like the aha moment for me, because I only found out about what it was afterward. I'm like, oh crap, that this is actually a thing. So anyway, this very peculiar looking guy who immediately attracted my attention is standing there, and he's wearing a black long sleeve t-shirt, new jeans, and new sneakers. Because jeans you can pretty much see when, new jeans, they have like a very distinctive, bright dye color, and when you put them through one wash, you can kind of see the weathering, right? Mm-hmm. It looks like he walked out of the store wearing these, which was kind of strange, especially given how weathered he looked. There's like this immediate dichotomy between this guy who had like what looks like brand new sneakers without any creases in them and brand new jeans, and yet there's this guy who's he's bald, deep wrinkles on his head, and like very, very tan. So it was weird. You'd expect him to be wearing like not sneakers, but like hiking boots or something.
Right.
That's just me. But so he's standing there. His hips are cocked, so he's putting most of his weight on one foot. Both of his hands are in his pockets, and he's kind of like bouncing a little bit. Like, so to me, it looked initially like, sometimes when people are nervous, they get a little bit theatrical. They're like, which way should I go? And they're kind of like waiting for your help. Our hospital is kind of difficult to find your way in sometimes, so it's common courtesy to, look for people who might be lost, especially at this particular junction, and then give them directions. So that was another reason why my radar immediately turned on. I was like, oh, does this guy need help? Because he was kind of like standing there. The stance actually was not as nervous as I thought it was, but it was more like cocky, almost like cocky, self-assured. Like he almost had like a very smug look on his face. It's very hard to explain, but that's just the vibe I got off of him. And I'm usually pretty empathic, so I think that's more or less correct. So he had like this weird smugness about him, weird smug stance. And so, he was kind of like looking this way and that way. And then as I almost walked up to him, I was going to say something to him. He turns and looks my way, and I can see one of his eyes, and it is completely pitch black. And my heart goes pretty cold. Like there is this deep pang of fear that like hits me head to toe. And so like I've bumped into a bear, when I was in Alaska, 6 a.m, going to the bathroom in the campground. Bear. Didn't really get that scared. Same place, I walked between a moose and her baby.
Ooh.
Almost messed my pants, but I didn't have the same fear reaction. It's almost like time kind of slows down. I have more reactions. Same thing with like, car accidents or when I'm slipping and there's somebody in the way. It's like time slows down. I can make more decisions. I can think more clearly. I can analyze. I can, kind of figure out what's going on. And that's pretty consistent with me. But in this case, it's almost like time sped up. It's almost like next thing I knew, I was down to the left in the lab, my heart beating in my ears, and like this twin. It almost felt like somebody grabbing my heartstrings, so to speak, not in a very romantic way, but like in like the just the tense fear that gripped me. It was like almost, it was almost like somebody hit an override switch. That's what I'm going to say. I mean, that's jumping straight to like conspiracy theory territory, but that's how it felt. It felt like somebody just hit the panic, fear, don't interact override switch, and like my decisions were made for me. I was just so scared by whatever that gaze was that, it just went to a whole new level of fear in me, which again, I hadn't experienced before. And walking in front of a bear or between a moose and her calf, I never got that either. And I mean, those are two situations you do not want to be in.
No.
So, yeah, it's like my brain like just blanked out and I just like skipped. Went on autopilot until I was away from that situation. It was so weird and so unsettling. It took me I had to sit down and kind of calm down because I was so kind of unsettled by what I've seen.
That kind of fear reaction, I mean, that's what people report with these black identities, where they're just overtaken by that fear, and you wonder, like hearing all these stories, I wonder, does anyone ever let the black-eyed kids in? Because they seem to be like they're immediately terrified of them.
Yeah. I've heard supposedly one story where it happened.
Yeah,
I
I heard a couple where people said they did, I guess David Weatherly, when he was on, he said the one woman, the kid was in the back of their car.
Yeah, oh yeah, that one too. So if I ever tell this story around a campfire, there's an ending I add on. This is the campfire story ending. It's true, but it may or may not be connected, but it's so much creepier. About 5 minutes later, there's a code blue 2 floors up, which he could have easily reached from, the elevator he was going to. So, code blue, somebody's cardiac arrest.
Okay.
So, kind of angel of death vibes there. It happens a lot at a hospital, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, or maybe fortunately, because we're there to take care of them.
Right.
But it's just a fun bit of spooky correlation. Whether it's worth anything, I doubt it, but, hey.
And, of course, you never saw him again or anything.
No. Yeah, never saw him again.
No one else.
He looked like he was, like Caucasian. I mean, like Caucasian is like from the Caucasus region. Like, he looked like he could have been, like, Georgian, could have had some, like, like around that area.
Right.
Kind of just the general vibe I got from his facial features, but the gigantic ears and big nose don't correlate at all.
And no one else who worked there mentioned seeing or anything?
No, and I don't know if anybody else saw him, just because of there were multiple people in the corridor at the same time, but they were passing, and I didn't see any of them, like, talk to him, look at him, acknowledge him, or, like, intentionally avoid him. But so I'm not sure if anybody else saw him.
Right, which may or may not mean anything. It's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting though. Creepy.
And so then over my lunch, I was talking to a friend about it, and she was home, and she was like looking this stuff up, and she said, "You knew about this, right?" And I'm like, "Knew about what?" And she's like, "Black-eyed kids, black-eyed adults," and she was listing me all this stuff. And I hadn't even heard about the whole Men in Black having an olive skin tone thing before either. Like, at this point, my paranormal interest was limited to, I think I had just started listening to some Coast to Coast stuff. And this was like, shadow government, black triangle UFOs, my life as a space marine, that kind of stuff. Like, not even truly paranormal.
Right.
More conspiracy theory. So I was just beginning to dip my toes in. And so, I had no idea about any of this stuff, and my friend was, like, giving me all these details, and she's like, that fits. Like, wait a second, holy crap, you said that, he looked like this, and so that was definitely confirmation for me. Something that I also kind of forgot to mention is when I also saw, basically where I saw the white creature on the road, I also saw a gigantic black wolf with my aunt, and, this thing was far larger than any wolf can be. We don't have wolves, and we don't have black wolves.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did mention that, and it was at the same place.
Yeah.
How long?
Basically.
How far? How long? Apart were these sightings?
I have no reference for that. It could have been in the same time period. It could have been, it might have been like 2 years apart. Yeah, but I don't really have a good memory for. Time and me don't get along too well.
No, I understand. But it was like a wolf.
Yeah, and she also saw that, and it was funny. I was talking to her about it at Thanksgiving because I was trying to organize these thoughts, and she's oh yeah, it's a gigantic black wolf. Wolves don't get that big. It was way too big, and I'm like, yeah, it couldn't have been a wolf. And she's like, well, no, it was a wolf. What else could it have been? She was contradicting herself because very much in denial. But she's an experiencer, I think. She can, like, read people. She's super empathic. She's just known certain things about people that were later proved to be true. Like, that, for example, that they were abusers or something. She's very much not into anything paranormal, but she has all the markings. She also has, like, chronic migraines, which I've heard of in a few other cases. And it's interesting that I was both with my dad, he also sees things when I saw the white thing. And I was with my aunt when I saw the barghast, as I call it.
Right. Big black dog.
Yeah.
So how big was it? Can you make an estimation?
I mean, I want to say 5 feet at the shoulder.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big dog.
I have seen Newfoundlands. I know what Newfoundlands are. That was not a Newfoundland. And it wasn't a bear.
Wow. Was it moving?
It was running across the road.
Okay, so you saw it in motion.
Yep.
Wow.
Same, the right to left motion, heading west. Same direction that the other one was heading.
And was it roughly in the same area, or almost exactly in the same area as the albatwitch or whatever creature?
Give or take 50 feet.
Wow. Yeah, in terms of this stuff, might as well be same spot. Wow.
Yeah, well, and here's the crazy thing. So my grandparents once owned this big chunk of land. My dream took place at my grandparents' house. I've always got the creepiest vibes when I was, like, dog sitting for them and staying over the night. Like, I'd leave all the lights in the house on. But they used to own this property, too. This is just, like, maybe not even a quarter mile north of their house. Because they live on a hill, and so it's there's roads on the other side of the hill, of course, in the valley areas, and so this is just the north boundary of what used to be their property.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, it seems kind of focused on this area. And I mean, I've also had a few other, like, once I got freaked out in the woods, I didn't see anything. I don't think I saw anything, but I had just like the get out sensation, and I sprinted. And in that same area, I had slept there before. I'd napped in the moss in that spot before, so there's no reason to be scared. And yet I just got this overwhelming get out sensation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there is kind of like this area thing going on. It's not like seeing a UFO, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but it's as equally inexplicable.
Yeah, but to me it just makes sense. It's one of these hallmarks of other stuff. People see black dogs and other things.
Yeah, and we live in an area that was settled by primarily like Scottish immigrants. So kind of the importing your folklore thing going on.
Yeah, people do tend to bring their folklore with them, which is something I love. Of course, that's an idea I absolutely love. They said that
really interesting.
The Pennsylvania Dutch brought the albatwitches with them so they wouldn't be homesick.
So in that case, it was literally like intentionally bringing it.
Well, I think that's a little bit of folkloric humor. I don't think anyone ever thought that they put one in a cage and brought it over with them or anything. Yeah. And in fact, the albatwitch in Germany and Austria is like a bird thing. I mean, it's like it has humanoid qualities, I think, but it's like this weird bird thing. It seems really like whatever they saw over here, they gave the name for whatever the weird thing they were seeing over there is, even though it was a different weird thing. It's like, it's a weird thing. We'll just call it an albatwitch. Interesting.
Another thing that I picked up, by the way, you talk about how alb translates to elf, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Alb also translates to white.
Yes.
Albion.
Yeah.
That's always just like a little thing I've thought about. Like it means white and elf, and like more of like the coloration thing. It's just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something to think about. Oh, well, I'm glad we came back around to I would have felt bad if we missed the black dog story. So, very interesting. Very interesting. I was on a Bigfoot investigation recently, and they had big black wolves, they had mountain lions, they had weird lights and ghosts, all along with Bigfoot. It was like a checklist, and I didn't, I only had to ask for like any other weird stuff, and here comes the checklist. I was like, check. Okay, yeah, it all makes sense.
Plain bingo.
Yep. Well, Justin, thanks so much for sharing your stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're quickly headed to episode 100. We are working on a special show for episode 100 that I think everybody will like. Remember, you can always find us at strangefamiliars.com. There was a little glitch with our website forwarding. We have that all figured out now. You might have to reset your browser if you had us bookmarked and you're getting a funny message. Go to strangefamiliars.com and reset that bookmark or refresh your browser. Everything should be up and running and working great now. strangefamiliars.com, you can find us there all the time. And our email again is strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com. We will be back next week with another episode of Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. darkhollerarts.com. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. Go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com for more. And you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars. You can join the Strange Familiars Gathering group as well on Facebook. We are also on Instagram @strangefamiliars.